2 weeks ago, Fernando Montes, who is the president of La Universidad Alberto Hurtado, the Jesuit university in Chile, gave an interview in which he reflected on the class obsession of Chile. Class divisions which become culture and get into the psychology of Chileans up to the point that they cannot dominate feelings as a result of that. And he said that the educational reform in Chile was a battle for the soul of Chile. He referred to the conflict that exists, he said, in the essence of the definition of Chile. He reflected, or he said, that this battle for the soul of Chile almost defined our way of constituting the Chilean nation. The fight for inclusion. An unknown woman, a couple of weeks later, sent a Twitter. And she said that she didn't like the educational reform because, as a result, children would be mixed. That was a clear statement. That was about, and you probably, most of you in this room follow the Chilean press, a subject that is also excluded. It is like the elephant in the room nobody wants to discuss. The segregated cities, the segregated schools, the segregated churches, the segregated stadiums, the segregated regions. We have built a country which is extremely segregated and has developed as different worlds that do not touch each other except in conflict. This is not new in Chile. The history of Chile since the end of the 19th century, in which la cuestión social, the social question, became an important issue. The main question was, what do we do with the poor at that time? Has always been centered on the question of education. Obligatory school in the 20s and 30s became an extraordinary divisive issue between those installed in the left wing of the spectrum, particularly the Radical Party and the Liberal Party, and the conservatives and the church. Last week, the net circulated a letter I didn't know from Gabriel Mistral, our Nobel Prize poet, criticizing strongly the positions of the church and the Conservative Party at the time, and demanding obligatory education for children, primary education at the time. The famous ENU, la Escuela Nacional Unificada of the period of Allende, was also an extremely divisive issue. It was seen as a pretension of a socialist government to introduce Marxism in the classroom. But if you look at what the government wanted to do, in fact, what the government wanted to do was to coordinate primary education, secondary education, and have a national program established by a national ministry of education, like France, for instance. But it was received as a brutal attempt against freedom of education. There were reactions that forced the government at that time to cancel the project in 1970, at the end of 1972. Now it's the educational reform in Chile, and the president of Chile last week said, she said, a a terror campaign against the educational reform. It has been published during the whole week. Why do we always get into this sort of irrational reactions when we touch the question of education and when we touch the question of balancing society or trying to get a more cohesive society? Each time these attempts have happened, we have had profound political earthquakes, and our institutions have been threatened by instability and conflict.